Chapter 20. Victor took a considerable amount of time to adjust the space key. He determined since Lizard had been the best at fighting Felix with it, this key would grant him similar advantages over the Speed Demon Lord. He practiced chasing birds and insects, and over a few hours he felt confident in its use. He did spend a little time with the Heavenly Sword, and with practice he eventually got it to change into a dagger, but it was nothing like the massive blade that Kirana had learned to conjure. He spent more time with the Heavenly Shield, and though he could not make the large dome that Sig could, the golden bubble with which he learned to envelop himself or something else was at least impervious to gunfire. Finally, he looked at the keys of omniscience. The key of prophecy had helped Stephanie to hold her ground, so he started with that. The swirling sensation that pulled him into visions of the future was disorienting at first. When he finally learned to train his mind to deal with the horrible sensations, he realized that the vision he was having was not a short movement prediction vision, but a full-fledged preview of what would happen. Everything was dark, and there were small metal silos with numerous tubes and wires linking them together. The tubes looked familiar to him, but he could not immediately determine why. As he explored the area, he began to notice that the cables and tubes were slithering like snakes between the silos. He shuddered as he continued to search for a reason he was seeing this vision. The silhouette of a feminine figure with a set of tank treads instead of legs appeared at the end of the hall. "Zeta 28, whispered Victor. One of the silos next to him suddenly hissed as steam poured from around it, and the door flipped up on its hinges. Suddenly a large creature sped by and grabbed the contents of the silo. Victor gasped as he realized it was a human child. He spun around and suddenly realized that there were aisles of silos that stretched well beyond his sight, and that there was no way he could number them. Victor ran down toward Zeta 28 angrily. As he approached, he realized that a cluster of silos had blocked his view of the one that Zeta 28 served. He stumbled to a stop as he saw a large black throne that seemed to be made of metal woven around human skulls. Seated upon this horrific chair was a massive creature with huge arms and legs. It was the Archdemon, and he was about 5 times as large as Abaddon and covered in horns. His mouth was filled with sharp fangs, and a forked tongue flicked out of his mouth. His eyes were dark, and seeing them made Victor shudder. It reminded him of times when he had been hunting bounties on augments, and he would peer into a window and witness torture, murder, or some other horrific acts. Though the Archdemon sat mostly still except his breathing, the eyes of this monster were as windows through which Victor could see his lust, hatred, and his twisted sense of pride. "Another batch of sacrifices are made ready, Master," announced Zeta 28. The Archdemon roared in a thunderous voice that made Victor's heart race and his skin feel cold. "They are 5 human years old, Master," announced Zeta 28 with pride. The Archdemon growled in acknowledgement. Hundreds of creatures rushed toward them carrying screaming children. Victor gripped the key of prophecy and willed the vision to stop. He could not bear the sights and sounds of this future Earth. After a few moments, he found himself in the shrine in the hot zone. He put the key down and gasped for air. He decided that he did not like this key particularly, but using it had caused him to gain more respect for Stephanie Mason. Thinking of the dark-skinned engineer made him realize that he needed to put aside his discomfort and get ready. If he was not adequately prepared when he went to face Felix Light, then even with the divine keys, he would die, and his friends would remain dead. Victor grabbed the key of prophecy again and focused on a grasshopper that he found in the corner of the shrine. He tried to focus on the swirling sensation and suddenly realized that it was this element that allowed him to see immediate possibilities. He saw the grasshopper stay still and leap and crawl and fly out of the shrine. He tried to focus on each possibility to see which one represented the choice that would be made. After a couple tries, he realized that the key was changing the way he saw the swirling possibilities. It was trying to speak to him. He continued to chase the grasshopper around the room until he was able to intuitively predict its movements. He leapt toward it and it tried to fly away, but Victor grabbed it in midair and smiled. "I see your movements now," said Victor as he released the grasshopper. Victor then worked with the key of perception. While the key of prophecy had seemed to work by interpreting motion, the key of perception worked best when Victor remained perfectly still. The more he focused, the more he was aware of his surroundings. He could see the direction of the wind gusts outside and count the pointy ends of the Joshua trees outside in an instant. He quickly realized that it took a great deal more effort to focus on things that were significantly further away. It made sense to him why Row 82, who was obsessively compelled to gather information on his surroundings, had been such a natural choice for using this key. Finally, Victor picked up the key of origins. He was not sure that he would need it at all, but he decided it would be better to be prepared. As he gripped the key, instead of giving him a specific insight as it had with key identification, it caused the world to lose its color. It felt very much like the mind realm, but he quickly determined that he was seeing the world as it was. He watched himself appear in the crater attempting to change the past. It was near this crater that he had set up a hospital and waited, hoping that Jennifer Cedar would appear. It was in this crater that he had found her, and with his friends put up a desperate defense against an innumerable horde of demon worshippers. It was in this crater that he had first realized he could use more than just one divine key. He saw himself look around in confusion. He wanted to reassure himself, but he somehow knew that this vision of the past was not interactive. "Do you remember why you were thrown here?" came a familiar voice from behind Victor. Victor spun around to see Michael. "Michael," he said. "Do you remember what happened?" he asked again. Started Victor. We tried to kill Daniel Young to prevent the Destroyer's arrival. We wanted to save the world." "And do you know what happened?" asked Michael. "Only from what Jennifer said," replied Victor. Michael pointed his finger and Victor turned to look. Somehow the crater had been replaced in an instant by the mountain cave with the human sacrifices. Jennifer reached for Victor's hand, but Victor vanished. One by one, the others began vanishing in flashes of light. Stephanie's disappearance was particularly surprising, since her electronic tablet she had used to speak with the others exploded as she vanished. Victor watched as Max Gray, Amanda Madsen, and Jennifer Cedar were eventually attacked by another man that was revealed as Senator Jacob Wilson. He transformed into Abaddon as he finished off Max and Amanda and began hunting for Jennifer. "Why are you showing this to me?" asked Victor. "You must understand that attempting to change the past comes at a price," said Michael. "Trying to save someone or something in the past can be taxing. Time itself pushed you into the future when you killed Daniel Young." "Is time a sentient thing, then?" asked Victor. "Does it have a will?" "Yes," answered Michael with a hint of a smile. He cleared his throat as he focused on the conversation with Victor. "But for now it might be better to think of it like a powerful natural force. Think of it like gravity." "Gravity?" asked Victor skeptically. "If you take a stone on the ground and want it to defy gravity, you can throw it up into the air," said Michael. "But no matter how hard you throw it, your arm does not have strength to hurl it beyond gravity's reach. It will naturally be pulled back down. Changing the past is like throwing that stone." So you're saying that no matter what is changed, natural forces will react against any changes? Asked Victor. Precisely, said Michael. So I can't save the others? Asked Victor in a concerned tone. Oh no, that's not what I'm saying, said Michael, particularly when it has to do with an area that is not clearly defined. That's not like gravity, said Victor. True, said Michael. The analogy is limited, but the important point is that there is a price to pay to overcome natural forces. When you killed Daniel Young, a choice that did not dramatically impact the future, the price was being thrown back to your own time. There was still a place for you, and you retained the memories of what had happened in both times. Is that why Jennifer's memory was off after time traveling? Asked Victor. Has she been paying some cosmic price? In some cases, yes, said Michael, but really, the question is what the price will be for you going back. And what will the price be? Asked Victor. Obviously, if you do something drastic like killing Felix Light, the price will be high, possibly the deaths of all the friends you are trying to save, said Michael. Victor's eyes widened. If you intend to do something less drastic and that fits in with the timeline, then the price is reduced. So if I go back and instill in Felix a terrible fear of light, then I might succeed? Asked Victor. In saving your friends, yes, replied Michael. But if you go back in time with a set of divine keys that you got from Felix's prison, and also save the keybearers so they can retrieve their divine keys, then which set of keys is real? Also, if you save yourself, then which Victor Lee is real? I don't know, said Victor. Time will be the arbiter, replied Michael, and she tends to target the ones that temper with her. If that's the case, then why was it so important to find out about Molly Patterson in the first place? Asked Victor. Couldn't this whole thing have been avoided? That is an excellent question, said Michael with a smile as the vision faded away. Victor looked at the divine keys as he sat in the shrine in the hot zone. He considered the warning that Michael had given him. Changing time meant that he might die, or that one of him might die. It was also possible that something else might happen, that his aims might be frustrated because he was the one seeking to change time. He looked at the time key in his hand. The memory of Jennifer Cedar's smile, her soft lips, and her long blonde hair came to mind. He clutched it tightly as determination filled his heart. He knew that he had to go back for her. He had to save her. He had to save them all. Perhaps the purpose that he could use more than one divine key was in order to accomplish the very thing he was about to do. I was prepared to die for her a long time ago, said Victor to himself. His eyes began glowing as he focused on the distant past. In a bright flash of light, he disappeared.